Hey Moon lovers, welcome to All Things Moon, lunar wisdom for everyday life. I'm Kelly Jones and I'm really excited to be sharing 30 plus years of teaching and guiding spiritual well-being. I figured I must have some wisdom to share with you all by now. As a moonologer, Astrala yoga guide, and an astrologer in training, I'll be sharing all the things that save me from this crazy world we find ourselves in, and hope that in some way I can serve you in your life too. Hey Moon lovers, welcome to another episode of All Things Moon, lunar wisdom for everyday life with myself, Kelly Jones. And if you listened to the last episode, you heard me talking about the rebirth of the Self-Love Club. So I thought today I would talk a little bit about why moon rituals are an act of self-love. So why practicing a closer day-to-day connection with the moon is an act of self-love and self-care. So if you think about the fact that on a new moon, so I hold a new moon ceremony and a full moon ceremony every 2 weeks. And on a new moon, we write down our dreams and wishes because it's a chance to be new again, to plant seeds and to manifest. And on a full moon, we get a chance to forgive, to let go, to release, to be grateful for what we've grown since the last new moon and how much we've grown and what we've been through. So we are basically acknowledging this. And we could do it without the moon, but the moon is a cycle. It's reliable. It's there. It does the same thing over and over again, although depending on where it is, depends on the effect that it has on the collective and on ourselves individually. But as we start to attune to that, we become much more aware of why things are happening, why they're likely to happen, it gives us a form of empowerment, of self-power to decide how we will respond and react and what we will do about those things that occur, that are likely to occur. And performing a ritual is always a way of making things more sacred. So if we tune in every day to the moon and we create rituals around that, and we become aware of those cycles, we become aware of self. So today, it's the 16th, Friday the 16th, and we have come past a new moon, and we are now in the first quarter moon phase. So each different phase that the moon is in has a slightly different energy. So you would say that the first quarter moon phase generally tends to be when you might come across your first obstacle in the way of what you wanted to manifest, what you were wishing for, what seeds you planted on the new moon. So this first quarter moon today is in the sign of Taurus, and it's actually in the last decan of Taurus today as well. So decans are each zodiac sign has got 30 degrees, 0 to 29. We don't say 30, we say 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., up to 29. And this is the last, so if you divide that into 3 sections of 10, this is the last 10 degrees of the sign. So that's where the moon currently is. So on the day of the new moon was in Aquarius. And now it has moved on because the moon moves through every sign every month, every 30 days, 29 to 30 days. And so we're currently in the first quarter moon in Taurus. So the challenges that we may come across will have a Taurian flavor to them. So, what is the first quarter moon? So, at this stage, the whole right side of the moon is illuminated because the sun and the moon are still side by side. So when you have a new moon, they're conjunct, if you like, next to each other, and they're still side by side as the moon is moving away from the sun. The right side of the sun is illuminated. So what does that mean? So this is thought to be the stage of where we come across obstacles and challenges. Or if you like, it's a time to pause. It's the pause phase in the lunar cycle, a time when maybe a challenge or a decision that we have to make or an action that we have to take comes into play. And largely, this should be a time of reflection. So you take a pause to reflect regarding your intentions and their obstacles. So maybe we would sit down today on the first quarter moon with our journals, look at what we'd written down for our wishes and dreams for this moon phase. And that would probably, if you come along to one of my new moon ceremonies or full moon ceremonies, I'm always going to tell you which house area, which area of your life that moon energy is most likely to show up. So we try to sort of think about our dreams and manifestations and wishes that we want around that house area as well, so that we're staying on point, if you like, a lot more chance of getting something sorted out or something to come to fruition by the next full moon around that area of your life. So when the first quarter moon comes about, think of it like planting a seed. So the plant or the seed has passed the initial stages of survival, and it's now sending down its roots by firmly, fixing itself into or anchoring its life force into the soil. So the plant is able to concentrate its energies into the growth of the stem and the leaves. And at the moment, I like to give you some real life examples. My partner Tom is away in the camper van in Wales with a friend of his. They're building fires and doing man stuff, going hiking. And he did actually go away on Valentine's Day, but we'll talk about that later, which is why I'm on the subject of self-love. But one of his instructions for me before he went away was to look after the chili plant seedlings that are upstairs. So we've got plant lights up there, and I'm having to spray the roots, and they're getting extra care as I'm looking after them because I like to talk to them and give them some love as well. And he was very worried about them surviving while he's away. So, this really ties in with that first quarter moon phase of coming up to obstacles. So the obstacle for him was the fact that he was going away and it was me going to be looking after it. But, I'm doing my best. So that's the first quarter moon phase. And this week I also started my new cacao yoga and the moon classes on Wednesday evening, which was on Valentine's Day. And I did put a post out on social media talking about how do you feel about Valentine's Day? Saint Valentine. There is some history and mythology in there. It's all very doubtful, and it actually has got a bit of a dark side if you look into it. But I'm not sure of these stories. But regardless of any of that, I think, for me personally, Valentine's Day brings up some memories of being, at school when lots of girls were getting these secret Valentine's cards, and I never got one. In fact, that's a lie. I did actually get one once, but I found out that it had been organised by my mum to give one to me. So it just made me feel double worse. So, that's kind of my start in life with Valentine's Day. And then moving further on in life, I actually decided that my marriage was over. I mean, this was a really long time ago. We're talking about 17 years ago. But I decided my marriage was over on Valentine's Day, and my soulmate cat, Sweep, he passed away not long after Valentine's Day in February. So this month, it doesn't have lots of happy memories, but in between all those times, when I was living the single life for quite a long time, for about 12 years, my friends and my single friends, we used to have Embrace It and Not Be Bitter Day. And we would, go to the shops and buy some of this commercials rubbish that you buy, and have an evening with each other, string heart lights up, and, share a bottle of bubbly and eat chocolate together. And, rather than be bitter about it, we'd embrace the whole thing as being a day of self-love and loving our friends. So my Strala yoga class, my cacao yoga and the moon class started on Wednesday, and I put it out there, come and give yourself some self-love time. So that class was as we were coming into the first quarter moon. So what I like to do with the yoga is it is inspired by that phase of the moon. So with this phase of the moon being a time of maybe a bit of challenge and growth, unlike a dark moon and a new moon phase where we might do a very yin, very restful, very slow moving class, I actually added in some more challenging things into the class, but using the Strala method and ethos of making hard things easy. So doing things with a sense of ease and calm, being movable and not rigid, allowing our breath to move us and soften us so that we become aware of how we feel. And when we become aware of how we feel, and we tune into our breath and we let our breath move us, and we move from our center. So moving from a place of knowing and instinct and natural movement as opposed to forced and pushed. That was how I was holding the class. So to encourage people to become aware of that moon phase and to be aware of how they're feeling. And if something is challenging, to find a way of making it more sustainable, easier on yourself so it feels better. It's a practice. And interestingly, I had two ladies in the class who were kind of the opposites. One lady was a yoga teacher, and the other lady has only just started any kind of exercise. She's got some physical challenges that make moving quite difficult, and having those two in the class, you can imagine the sort of thoughts that were coming up for them. So being a yoga teacher, coming to a yoga teacher, you usually want that teacher to know that you can do it, and maybe a little bit of over trying. And then there's a self-berating of somebody who finds it a bit more difficult. So the growth part of that class was to allow them to concentrate on feeling good no matter what they were doing, because it was for them. It was not self-loving to be having those kind of thoughts. And the fact that we are using that moon phase to guide us through the class is how moon rituals, following the cycles of the moon, is an act of self-love. I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about what's going on in the astrology at the moment, because it's pretty crazy. This Aquarius time, the sun's going to be moving into Pisces shortly, but this whole Aquarius time, while the sun's been in Aquarius, has been absolutely full on busy. There are so many aspects, particularly today. There's so many today that, I could go way over my half an hour window that I seem to have on this podcast. Because if you've been listening to this, you might have noticed that at the 30-minute stage, it seems to cut out and then I have to come back on again. So I'm really going to try and keep it under that 30 minutes today. So apologies if I sound like I'm rushing a little bit. So I'm going to describe to you my little story to explain the kind of energy of this month of astrology. So I want you to think of Aquarius like a new age futuristic nightclub. And Aquarius is all about, in that nightclub, you feel free, there's community, you can be part of something, there's no authority in there, everybody wears the crown. We are all one. But at the door, at the entrance at 0 degrees of Aquarius, is the Lord of the Underworld, playing the part of security. You're not coming in, you've got to get past Pluto. So to come in, you've got to go through the death, rebirth, and transformation to get into the club and out the other side into the spiritual, dreamy world of Pisces, where Saturn is residing and waiting for you on the outside through the other door. And if you go out that door, Saturn is not going to let you out unless you've done what you need to do and you've got some discipline and you have got yourself a system going and you've got yourself organized enough to have a spiritual practice. So unless you do your death, birth, transformation, you're not coming in to the Aquarius nightclub. And queuing at the door, when we arrived at that new moon time, we had just had Mercury coming in to Aquarius. So he had managed to get in. And remember that Mercury is a wily trickster. So Mercury in myth was the Roman god of commerce, communication, and travel. He is the patron of thieves, messengers, and merchants, and he's also responsible for conveying souls to the underworld. And if you think that he managed to trick his way past Pluto into Aquarius, and Aquarius is the inventor. And today, Mercury is in Aquarius still, and he is square, and squares are challenges, remember, to Uranus, the planet Uranus, who is still in Taurus. So Aquarius, the inventor, and Uranus, the maverick, the energy of that with Mercury, the communicator, is things like original, outside the box thinking. You might have a genius idea. You also might have a put your foot in your mouth, say something you shouldn't say, it just comes out moment. I literally had a conversation with one of my best friends this morning who I'm making crystal crowns with, and she told me a story where she literally had that this week. You know, she'd said something and then, afterwards she regretted saying it, but it came out anyway. And, she's forgiven herself. Also, it could be an energy of overstimulation. Uranus is very electric, so it's a high kind of frequency, frenetic, overstimulated feeling. Also, the impossible suddenly becoming possible. Things like the 4-minute mile. At one point that was a crazy idea, and then suddenly someone could do it. So yeah, that's kind of one of the energies that are going on today. What else have we got? So I explained to you about the nightclub. So also behind Mercury was Mars. So Mars on, what day was it? On Valentine's Day. So on the morning of my lovely new class that I was starting in the evening, on that morning of Valentine's Day, angry outbursts were highly likely because we had Mars at the door with Pluto, trying to get past Pluto, the lord of our underworld. And Mars, the god of war, who wants to take action now, he's all about taking action, had to get past Pluto. So there was highly likely to have been an angry clash and conflict that morning. And just to top it off, the moon at that point was in the sign of Aries. The Aries, the I am. Aries, the fire sign. So as you can imagine, it could have been a quite explosive morning for people. So it was probably a really good thing that my partner got up really early and left to go away in the camper van. But I can tell you that the night before, when I thought, maybe, we don't really buy into this whole commercial thing of Valentine's Day, but, maybe I might get something romantic. You might cook me a nice dinner, or maybe we'll go out to dinner. But actually what happened is he came in and asked me if I minded having a Chinese takeaway. And I think he saw my physical reaction to that. But sometimes, these little angry feelings, I was very calm. I didn't explode. I knew that was likely. So I just sat there. I did a nice big strahl of breath. I softened and I utilized that little bit of angry feeling that I had to instigate some action. So what I actually did, what I had been trying to do for quite a while and failing miserably, was I managed to find myself and book myself a flight to Egypt. So I'm actually going to Egypt on Monday morning, flying out early Monday morning and coming back on Friday because a really amazing friend of mine is living out there at the moment. She's house sitting, cat sitting, and she's only going to be there until the end of the month, which we do have an extra day this month, being a leap year. We've got until the 29th. But time was running out for me for that to be possible. But sometimes, these little energies are useful for taking a positive action. So I'm super excited today, slightly anxious as well, because I haven't been away since 2020. But I needed to get out of Groundhog Day. I needed to do something exciting. I needed to do an act of self-love, which entailed me getting out of my comfort zone. That comfort zone, when you don't do something for ages, you've got to go through that little uncomfortable thing. And I explained that in my yoga class as well. For somebody who hasn't done any exercise at all, you've got to go past that uncomfortable bit to get to the place where you feel better. And once you get that feeling of feeling better, it makes it easier to do it again. So hopefully, once I've done this trip, I'll be doing more. And finally, The last planet that was at the door, who is just about to enter, is Venus. So Venus is coming in to bring a little bit of yin to the yang of Mars and a bit of harmony into the mix. So Venus coming in is an invitation to reimagine our approach to love, how we approach relationships, and also our finances. So, as we know, Aquarius being futuristic, Venus being about love, beauty, our values, and also money. We're going to notice that Aquarius, futuristic, Uranus type AI thing coming in around finances, around money, and also the values by which we live our lives. So Venus in Aquarius, this transit is an opportunity to notice in what ways we might feel drawn to conform, to appease, to give up our truth in exchange for being accepted, to be part of the group, to have validation, and an illusory sense of belonging. So it's going to highlight that. So no more appeasing, let's use this energy to do what we want. So when I was sitting with my finger hovering over the button to book a flight, my friend who I'm going to see, she sent me a message saying, "What's stopping you, Kelly?" And what was stopping me was partially to do with money. And, if I spend the money, will I get it back again? Will there be more money? And also appeasing Tom in a way by, I knew it would upset him a little bit if I went on an aeroplane without him, because he hasn't been away since 2020 either. But, he's in a camper van in Wales. But, this is the Cancerian in me, people pleasing, keeping everybody happy except myself. So the act of self-love, using this Venus energy to help me, and the Mercury and the Mars, to get past this sort of, this imaginary fear. And the other part of it was actually going to the airport. I really don't like authority. And if you look at my birth chart, you would see why. I have my Pluto in the 10th house. And so it really means that I don't like being told what to do. So yeah, self-love. So the rebirth of the Self-Love Club, and I started quite a long time ago. It's just about to start again. Some new classes are coming up in March, and they're in-person classes where you've got to sort of live locally to me to come along. But the next moon ceremony falls on the day after I get back. So I get back on the 23rd, and there will be a full moon in Virgo. My moon is in Virgo, so that's where my inner world shows. So that full moon is in Virgo on the 24th. That will be from 8 till 9:30 UK time. So just go to the links for my website to book on. It's only £11 and 11p to join in, so it doesn't cost too much. And if you're really struggling, send me a message, and always try and work out a way if you really, really want to join in. And we'll see what's coming up as everybody, all these planets are going to be making their way into the lovely spiritual watery sign of Pisces. And I'll be able to tell you all about my trip to Egypt. So I'm hoping that this has served you in some way today. And apologies again for my slightly inconsistent podcast. I'd love to do it weekly, but my life just isn't regular. And, I am a high yellow personality who doesn't do discipline very well. But I do my best to bring you something when I can, and doing it when I feel that I can as well, rather than trying to force it, because that is not an act of self-love. So much love to you. Keep tuning in with the moon, and I look forward to speaking to you all again real soon.